Thank you all for coming. Let's take seats. Good afternoon to everybody and welcome. As usual, let me remind for all of you, and especially those who visit us for the first time, in the 6 FAO and UN languages: English, Spanish, French, and Arabic, Chinese, and Russian, as well as Italian. And today this event is going to be webcast through our website live. I'm delighted to welcome all of you to this second annual gathering meeting of mayors after the signing of the Milan Urban Focal Policy Pact last year in October. FAO is also honored to have this celebrating today in such a date as World Food Day. I would like to offer a warm welcome to our speakers today and to all our visitors. And without any further delay, because of the summit this afternoon, I'm going to give the floor to our first speaker, FAO Director General José Graziano da Silva. Sir, you have the floor.
Mr. Giuseppe Sala, Mayor of Milan, through whom I would like to salute all other mayors present here today. Ambassador Pierfrancesco Sacco, Permanent Representative of FAO, through whom I would like to salute all ambassadors and representatives present here today. Mr. Andrea Mazzillo, Council Treasurer of Rome, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to welcome all of you to FAO and symbolically open the doors of this organization to all cities of the world. We are gathered here today in the second Mayor Summit to reinforce and evaluate progress of the important commitment you made last year at Expo Milano, the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. FAO is proud to be supporting this initiative in many ways. First, by assisting with the formulation of indicators and measure targets. Second, by obtaining and monitoring data to show the progress and results achieved. Third, by facilitating the exchange of best practices among cities. And fourth, by helping to expand this network. Local authorities in our global quest for sustainable development. It is at local level where people in fact live, where people eat, where people drink water, where we take out our garbage, and so on. This way, the Milan Pact directly contributes to the implementation of the 23rd Agenda and all its sustainable development goals. In fact, to eradicate extreme poverty, hunger, and all forms of malnutrition, and promote sustainable agricultural development, promote healthy diets and healthy food systems, reduce waste, we need your support. While in adapting to climate change, its effect, the agreement already includes more than 130 cities. Just to give an example, goes from Moscow to Melbourne, from Kyoto to Quito, bringing together more than 460 million people. All cities, big and small ones, have the potential to make a difference and contribute to build sustainable and resilient food systems to feed the future. The world's cities occupied just 3% of the global's land, but more than half of the population live nowadays in urban areas. And this urban global population, about 3.5 billion people, is set to increase by around 65% in 2050, especially in developed countries, where most of this expansion is expected to take place. This means that by 2050, 2 out of 3 inhabitants will live in urban areas. This rapid urbanization exerts pressure on food systems and natural resources. And let me say also, we are seeing that the impacts of climate change, one of the most important is to accelerate the rural-urban migration, especially on those areas submitted to drought and severe impacts of the weather. Solutions must be found. Cities need to become more inclusive, more safe, and more resilient. Excellencies, last year at Expo Milano, we also saw the launch of a beautiful and very efficient small initiative. During 5 months, 15 tons of wasted food were transformed into healthy food that provided lunch for many children and also even meals for homeless shelters. As many of you may know, this initiative, called the Refettorio Ambrosiano, was implemented under the leadership of the Italian chief Massimo Bottura and counted on the contributions of many other chiefs and professionals from other areas. This year, the initiative was brought to Rio de Janeiro during the Olympic Games and to other cities as well, with very good results. For those who wanted to see what is already achievement, you can find a few 2016 festival in the YouTube. Actions like these promote social inclusion, foster tolerance, bring hope, and help to feed the poor. Initiatives like soup kitchens, restaurants, are a great help for this. And the cost of putting them in place is minimal compared to the benefits it can bring to your cities. Distinguished guests, I would like to bring another aspect that is more and more the cities are becoming food producers, not only food consumers. Urban and peri-urban agriculture can provide food products from different types of crops. It can make an important contribution to household food security, especially in times of crisis. Local products require less transportation and can be either consumed by the producers themselves or can be sold in near markets with fresh and more nutrition capacity and also at competitive prices. FAO supports the implementation of such activity through a specific technical program that we call urban and peri-urban agriculture. We will be glad to assist you if you want to implement them. Ladies and gentlemen, the World Food Day this year, 2016, recalls that one of the biggest issues related to climate change is food security. Following the adoption of the Paris Agreement, the next climate change conference that will be held in Marrakech, COP22, aims to be a conference of concrete action. Cities must be involved in this effort. For too long, food security and nutrition have been overlooked in urban planning and urban development. FAO maintains a program called Food for Cities, which address the challenge of urbanization, include food waste and loss. Cities and local authorities need to find synergies with policy instruments focused on food and nutrition security at global level, but also national level. Multi-stakeholder collaboration is the way forward. We need to help each other. The Sustainable Development Goals can only be achieved by working together, including national and local authorities, international organizations, civil society, private sector, and of course, our citizens. Today is a day to share ideas and best practices, set new goals, and discuss the best way to translate our commitments made in Milan into concrete actions. I wish all of you a fruitful deliberation in this event. Thank you very much for your presence and for your kindly attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Director General. I would like now to share with you a video that has been prepared to show you a summary of what the Pact of Milan is. So we are going to have the video coming up right now. Please. Grazie, continuiamo allora con il programma e vorrei approfittare per dare il benvenuto e la parola al sindaco di Milano, Giuseppe Sala.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to be here, and let me switch to my native language, Italian. Sono felice. I
must say that I'm very happy to represent Milan here at this second summit of mayors of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. Obviously, I would like to greet José Graziano da Silva, the Director General of FAO, and all other participants here at this meeting. Today, World Food Day is an excellent opportunity for us to draw the attention of the international community once again to themes that have inspired Expo Milan in 2015. And obviously, seeing those pictures took us back a year ago. And it was very moving, because at that time I was a commissioner, a government commissioner for the Expo. And the Expo has been an expression of Milan, of its identity, and of its tradition, and also its spirit of innovation. But this Milanese tradition is one that takes its true meaning when Milan opens to the world. And I think that is one, certainly, of the distinctive features of the city. And it's the element which I think is something that's very clear in Milan, for it to be open in many different ways to the world. Here, we certainly feel it's important for us to strengthen our role that we had begun with Expo Milan regarding food policies. Now, the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact is a very important tool. It's one that brings together 130 cities of the world to build fair and sustainable food systems through the establishment of networks that can translate certain principles, such as the access of food to all, of proper food to ensure good health, and the decrease of food waste, into concrete action. And here could I begin by thanking our predecessor, who you saw in the video, Mayor Pisapia, who launched this initiative. Now, this pact is showing and has shown its capacity to have a true impact on food policies at a global level. And the fact that we're here today also means that we want this pact to become a living thing as far as possible. And I'll be telling you a bit about what's taking place in Milan. But regarding the pact, let me point out that very recently the steering committee has been established, made up of 13 cities throughout the world, presided by Milan. And we are forming alliances with other city networks that have decided to cooperate with the Pact. Let me give you some examples. C40, for example, that has created a food systems network. Eurocities that has established a specific working group on food. And the Italian network of healthy cities, Città Sana, as well as others. Based on the principle which I think we all share, and that is that if international policies are established by institutions, whether they be government or non-government and international, cities can and must play a very important role in making these policies something practical and that has an impact on the lives of their citizens. On the 13th of October, we discussed yesterday the definition of a monitoring and assessment system for the Pact's objectives. It's important to establish these and then to be able to control if these goals are actually achieved. Today we have the first edition of the Milan Pact Awards, which are a form of recognition for the cities that have shown to have the best food policies. There are 6 different awards and 2 monetary awards that will serve to finance into other areas the good practices that have been used by these cities, the awarded cities. This is a way of emphasizing the spirit of cooperation and collaboration that exists within the Pact. We're also following closely the next Quito conference on the 16th to the 20th of October, which will promote the new urban agenda, a document that will help guide cities for the next 20 years. Now, let me tell you a bit more about what Milan is doing. Milan is ready to accept these challenges and to use all its influence and credibility to serve a joint project which focuses on the themes that inspired the Pact. And let me mention them once again. We saw them in the video, but I will nonetheless. Amongst them, there are, for example, safe drinking water and healthy and nutritious food for all, the sustainability of food systems, food education, the fight against waste, and the recovery and recycling and reuse of surpluses, the promotion of urban agriculture, and of the short supply chains for food that often is described as 0 kilometers, as well as sustaining scientific research in this area of agro-food. Now, Milan's commitment does not only focus on the major international challenges, but also more concrete forms of projects implemented in our area. We have our active involvement of all the forces of the city, because Milan is capable of organizing itself when we establish an objective. All the strengths that exist within the city. We have extraordinary tertiary sector, excellent universities, scientific communities, our entrepreneurs, who we often call to support us. So going from our citizens to our institutions and to industry, we are calling on them all to give priority to food policies for the city. Now, what have we done to be more specific? Along with a company called Milano Ristorazione, a catering firm, we are obviously concerned about what children are eating in schools, in the cafeterias. And with Legambiente, we have established a project called I Don't Waste. 500 primary schools are involved and have made it possible for 10,000 children to take home certain products which had not been eaten in the cafeterias. And that is one example. Another the small farms around Milan. Now, Milan is a very urban city, but when you move out toward the south, there are farms, there are cheeses, there are fruit and vegetables that are produced. And these farms around Milan will be and are already supplying their products to this company that is supplying these schools, and will be explaining to the children that they are eating food that is produced nearby. And we've also established a protocol with educational institutes to study the use of surplus. And we have an agreement, for example, with one of the largest companies of major distributors so that the surpluses can be distributed within our area. And we're also about to begin a project called Healthy Meals, Pasto Sano, in cooperation with our health authorities. They will be offering to those who eat outside of their own homes, and I would say for those who work, that's almost always the case for their lunches, a map of those places that are identified with a specific logo where we feel that they are ensured of healthy food. We are also working with other institutions to establish a food council for Milan. So there are activities that in some cases are symbolic, but others very practical. And we think that in doing so, we are able to transmit the idea that from dialogue and discussions such as those of today, we can move on to benefit our citizens through concrete action, particularly with one clear, and that is that we must begin with the new generations. I saw this at Expo Milan. I was there for almost the whole period, 24 hours a day. And I must say that it was a magnificent moment, one of great celebrations, and it was one made it possible for us to share various forms of entertainment, of architecture, of experiences and ideas, but mostly I see the faces of the children before what they were seeing. We encourage them to think about the fact that you must not waste, to help them become aware of the fact that they can do something and contribute to improve their own nutritional status. And we think that if we involve schools, if you involve children, the new generations, we can do something concrete now, but in so doing, we're investing in the future. And let me conclude in sharing with you a bit of good news, always regarding Milan. We have just recently won with a project a European bid for urban innovative actions of urban sustainable development, and we have been granted 6 million euros from the EU to develop a project of agriculture in the cities. It's called Open Agri. And I think in this way we'll be able to continue developing the themes of Expo and what I'll call the Expo heritage, involving sometimes limited activities, but which help our citizens to understand that this is a priority for us. We can't take it for granted because as mayors, the problems that we must deal with are very numerous, transportation, mobility, the environment, etc., etc., as all my colleagues here in this room know quite well. But if we want to convince people that food, healthy food, is a fundamental part of our lives, then we must constantly convince them by examples and show them that it is a priority. That's what we're doing in Milan, and I'm sure that all my colleagues have this same concern, that you will all be doing the same. And we obviously are available to share with you our experiences. I thank you. Thank you, Enrique. Good afternoon to you all, distinguished Director General, mayors, ladies and gentlemen. It's an extraordinary pleasure to be here today with you. Today, on World Food Day, I recall World Food Day 2015 in Expo Milan with the President of the Republic. And today, this morning, with the President of the Italian Council. So Italy, a country that is proudly hosting this international reality, and the Rome-based UN agencies such as FAO. Minister Martina cannot be here today, unfortunately, and has asked me, therefore, to read his comments for you. Exactly a year ago, within the extraordinary experience of Expo Milan, we deposited the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact and Milan Charter to Ban Ki-moon. The Pact is certainly one of the most important realizations of Expo Milan and brought together the efforts of our local authorities of the most important cities of the world to develop together and implement urban food policies that are intelligent and sustainable for the new millennium. We are therefore extremely happy that the mayors and the representatives of major world cities are meeting once again here in Rome to renew their commitment and activities. The ties which exist between agriculture and urbanization in the cities where more than half of the world population live are becoming clearer throughout the world, whether it be in developing worlds or in the industrialized countries. It's a subject that is very dear to our hearts in Italy. In the light of our great tradition, there are 2/3 of our citizens who do live in urban areas, a number which will certainly increase in coming years. And this will lead to an increase in the consumption of food and therefore of waste. That is equal to the GDP of certain countries. This is something that is not sustainable nor ethically acceptable. A month ago, we approved a new law to avoid food waste, a very modern law that involves different activities within all phases of the food cycle, from production to distribution and recovery of surplus. We think that a reorientation of urban food policies toward greater sustainability will have benefits on a large scale. We feel that poverty reduction, which is one of the main goals of sustainable development approved by the UN last year, urban agriculture makes it possible for families to receive additional income and produce healthy foods for themselves without having to depend exclusively on foods they may purchase. The role of cities is therefore fundamental in promoting healthy food habits, particularly through the cafeterias in the schools and in hospitals. On all these themes, the sustained commitment of the Italian government is strong, and we will give it great attention during our presidency of the G7 next year. Let me once again thank the City of Milan and the Mayor, Giuseppe Sala, as well as all mayors who are here today. We're sure that your efforts will be decisive in writing a new page of urban reality in the world of today. I thank you.
Grazie, Ambasciatore. Representing the City of Rome, we are going to have the last speaker of this first part of the afternoon. We have a representative from the Comune di Roma, il signore Andrea Mazzillo, assessore al bilancio del Comune di Roma. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Hello to everybody. I'll try to speak English in such a way that everybody can address the mayor's greetings, and we are really pleased to host you here in Rome. It's wonderful for us to discuss about a theme that is too much taken apart. It's not just economy, it's social and urban relations, as we were saying. Security, food security. I do thank the Director General for having hosted us here and all the participants, and also the Romans are happy to have you here to discuss about these issues. So I would just like to say a few words, not very much, but just to say that I thank the Mayor of Milan, Sala, for this initiative that makes all mayors from all the world, I heard about 130 mayors, cities, working together, trying to find a solution to very serious problems, because we're talking about people that do need assistance, starting from food. And giving food to people, it makes people live in peace. This is the first problem. Who lives here in Rome knows how much immigration has a great impact on all Romans' life. So also cities become insecure, dirty, and we need to solve this problem. The best way is, from my point of view, but I believe that this is the point of view also of all the council, is to work on bioeconomy, I would say. So we're talking about something different. We're talking about an economy that takes into account a technology that makes food, as we were saying, secure. This is a problem that also all mayors have. I heard Sala talking about diet. Our children go to school and they eat food. We have to provide healthy food. And this is also a health issue that we have to address in our meetings. I do believe that also, and it's many times on the newspapers, the waste system, I would say, in Rome has to get more efficient. But this also means making people understand that waste can be reused. Waste can be an element to have more and best energy production, I would say. So I saw the video, it's very nice. We're talking about urban areas with 3.5 billion of people living in them. So that means that it's hard to govern these urban areas. Rome is one of them. But we have a story, we have a history, we have monuments, archaeological sites, tourists, we have Vatican. Rome has got loads of treasures inside that can make it become a turning point for all mayors, just to look at it. So for us, it's very important to change this view, make Rome become something really that everybody would like to be, all big cities. So I'm talking about, for example, we were talking about homeless, poor people. Managing waste, food waste, is one of the main tasks that we have to work on. So just to end my speech, I just wanted to say that we have started to work with commercials, with restaurants and markets and whoever is involved with food to save on packages, to try to make whatever comes out from their kitchens or what it just remains from meals that can be used as another way of providing food to who needs sustain. This is a goal that we want to achieve also by reducing the garbage fee, because as you know, whatever you try to provide as an administrator, you have also to make people believe in it. And money, I'm the council treasurer, becomes a good way of making people change their habits. So this is one of the main tasks that we are carrying out, but we also have other ideas. We are working on, for example, 0 kilometers policies. We are arranging education programs inside the schools. We are trying to make people speak and talk about problems inside the municipalities, because Rome's got 15 municipalities. So we're trying to make all people give ideas and solutions to plenty of these issues that we are talking about today. So I do thank you to be here. I thank you also from the mayor, Virginia Raggi. She's the first female lady in this city, and we are trying to make it a better and more sustainable city. Thanks a lot.
Grazie, Assessore. I'm going to ask now, we are going to have a photo opportunity. This is a historic moment. I'm asking our in the podium to please go down, and all of you to stand. We will be making a picture with all the mayors from here. And with that, we will be ending the first part of this afternoon. Thank you. We are about to start the second part of the session. We are a little bit delayed in the schedule of today.
Can I speak from the podium?
Yes, yes.
Yeah?
sit there and I'll call you. Well, sit there or whatever you want. Yeah, but I think if you sit there, I'll call you and then we'll go. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Por favor, les pediría a las delegaciones que quieran hacer conversaciones bilaterales que las hagan fuera del recinto. Vamos a comenzar la segunda parte. We are going to start with the second part of this session. I am pleased, very pleased to welcome our keynote speakers as soon as possible. First, we will hear a few words from Professor Corinna Hawkes, Director of the Centre for Food Policy at City University of London and member of the International Panel of Experts on Sustainable Food Systems. Corinna Hawkes is also co-chair of the Global Nutrition Report. Professor, please take the floor. Thank you. And I would like to ask our delegations, please, to take your seats. We are about to start with our first keynote speaker of the afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, delegates. If we can please take our seats, we have our first speaker in the afternoon. We are a little bit delayed in the program. Professor, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed, and good afternoon. Your Excellencies and distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, and indeed colleagues and friends, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation to speak here today. I have to say it's a tremendous honour for me to be among people who've done so much to drive forward the urban food policy agenda. What I'm going to be talking about today is from the global to the local and back, the global context for urban food policies, very much in line with the slogan you see in front of you, which is of course more than a slogan, local solutions for global issues. And I have to confess that as a food policy analyst for many years, it's only relatively learn about the power and potential of urban food policies. And before that, I had focused largely on global and national level food policies, the kind of up-in-the-air stuff that seems very distant from people. But as soon as I began to learn about urban food policies, I began to realise that here was a way to connect local solutions, a way of using local solutions to address global as well as local problems, and moreover, to connect people with policy. I remember distinctly the first conversation I ever had with Rosie Boycott, who chairs the London Food Board, when she was using her hands like this to show how the municipal level could be used to connect local populations with the bigger world of food policy and global problems. And it was the first of many conversations I've had since then about the importance of connecting local lived experiences to the larger global policy context. And it struck me even more forcefully just a couple of weeks ago when I was teaching my master's students. I'm director of the Centre for Food Policy in London, where we have the only masters in food policy in the world. And I asked the students, who come from all kinds of backgrounds, from chefs to local voluntary organisations, to from government to big industry, and indeed to the staff here at FAO, why they wanted to study food policy. And the answer from the vast majority was that they wanted to connect their personal passion and their personal experiencing with engaging with food to the bigger global context of food policy. And that, I told them, is what urban food policy can do. But what is this bigger global context? We're all aware that the world is now focused on the Sustainable Development Goals, which call on us to tackle a multitude of problems in our times: health, environment, climate, water, waste, employment, livelihoods, infrastructure, etc. The problem I work on most is obesity and nutrition. I'm co-chair of the Global Nutrition Report, which shows at least 2 out of 3 people are somehow affected by malnutrition. But this is not the only problem that is evidently affected by the food system. Most of them are. Pretty much everything is connected to food. So how did we get here? A world where, as the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact states, food systems are being challenged. To answer from a global food policy perspective, let's first look at the big shifts since the 1940s. And we can divide these past decades, very broadly speaking, into 2 eras. In the 1940s to the 1970s, food policy took a production push approach. Policy globally was on producing as much food as possible to feed growing populations. Produce it and they will eat was the mantra. This was the era of great technological growth, of fertilizers, high-yielding crops, green revolution. It was the era of national and regional self-sufficiency, producing enough food for national populations, and in some cases, as in Europe, regional populations. It was the era of cheap food policy, which said, all is okay, provided we are producing enough low-cost calories. But from the late 1970s onwards, and especially in the 1990s, we moved into a new era, the consumer pull policy approach, by which I mean that policy shifted to free up markets, to allow consumer demand to have more control. It was viewed that policies that relied simply on producing enough were not delivering to the people that needed to eat, which was indeed the case. And moreover, production was still falling short in some parts of the world. Far better, then, to liberalise markets so that consumers can issue signals for what they need and want, which then can be communicated back to producers. And to be truly efficient, this supply should come from everywhere through open trade, globalisation for a global food supply. It was manifest in the form of global supply chains controlled not by farmers but massive supermarkets. This was the era that said, all is okay as long as consumers can get what they need and what they want. And then in 2007, the food price crisis hit. Something was clearly wrong. It became evident that what had been in practice and an easy policy mix between the push and pull approaches were not working. While both approaches undeniably brought benefits, the consumer pull approach had seen massive growth of consumption often for consumption's sake. It had seen the growth of obesity and diet-related non-communicable diseases in the midst of undernutrition, of tremendous food waste as the soils and water taken to produce that very same food degraded, of the warming of our climate which threatens food security as never before. This unsustainable consumption was now added to the unsustainable production that had emerged from the production push era. And connected to all of this was the great force of urbanisation, the growth of large cities as well as middle-sized towns. So now, in the 2010s, it can no longer be a question of just producing more, of just consuming more. Rather, it has to be a question of healthy consumption from healthy production through healthy food systems. It has to take the reality of urbanisation and cities into account. It has to be the next era of food policy. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, where you come in. Urban food policies provide the possibility for a new era, an era that sees urbanisation and cities as an opportunity, that uses the power of cities to create policies that both encourage adequate and healthy eating and that manage the supply and disposal of what is being eaten in cities. Speaking from a global perspective, this is essentially about how we manage our food supply chains, which for me is at the core of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. Cities are at the locus of consumption, but they exert huge influence on production, supply and disposal of food through the system. Cities may be entities with boundaries on their physical form and their decision-making powers, but in reality they are interconnected with everything, including the supply of food around them. This is planetary urbanisation. Now, urban agriculture and supply from the regions around cities are a very important piece of this picture. Cities can play a crucial role by developing agriculture and city-region food systems. However, when it comes to linking with the global context, this is only part of it. Supply chains are also national and global. In reality, cities, as you well know, are served by a combination of local, national, region and global supply chains, all of which involve production, distribution, processing, trade and retailing in the cities, from informal street vendors, farmers' markets to large supermarkets. The key challenge for urban food policies is surely, then, to work out where and how they can intervene in all of these value chains, to engage with all of the players in the chain, to find solutions to problems both in cities, nutrition, food access, economic development, etc., and the problems way beyond them, such as climate change and unsustainable agriculture. We heard examples of such approaches yesterday in the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact workshop. Now, this is going to take strong networks, as you know, between cities, but also between local, national and global frameworks. Global and national level frameworks need to provide for and support local realities. Let me go back to my master's class again. In my class, I'd asked the students to come to class with an example of a food policy of interest to them. And not surprisingly, most of them had come with an example that meant something to them locally, because this is where they experience and connect with food. And my favourite example came from a student from Belgium called Barbara. She told us about a local outcry in Verviers in Belgium, where national food safety policy threatened their local dish, a rice pudding of which they were very proud. To maintain flavour, the dish is stored out of the fridge, which was not allowed by national legislation. But fortunately for the indignant mayor, a national food safety review confirmed that it was indeed safe to store the rice pudding out in the open, as long as it was just for 12 hours. So now there was a rice pudding policy in Belgium developed based on the concerns of one city, a case where national policy needed to be amended to cater to local realities. And the potential we see of urban food policies is why, at the International Panel of Experts on Sustainable Food Systems, my colleague and indeed an alumni from the Centre for Food Policy, Dr. Jessica Halliday, who is sitting in this room, has been working with us to learn from you all about what drives successful urban food policy development and delivery. And we look forward to that report coming out in early 2017. Please do pick up one of the flyers summarising our findings to date. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Many thanks, Professor Hawkes, for your presentation. And I would like now to introduce our next speaker, Professor Roberta Sonnino, Professor of Environmental Policy and Planning at Cardiff University and member of the Milan Pact Awards Evaluation Committee. Roberta Sonnino is also the Director of the Research Centre for Sustainable Urban and Regional Food. Her internationally recognized research focuses in particular on local food systems, public food procurement, urban food governance and food security. Professor, you have the floor.
Hi. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Please allow me a few seconds at the beginning of my speech to thank the Mayor of Milan and FAO for this exciting invitation. I also would like to acknowledge 4 colleagues from the City of Milan with whom I've had the privilege of collaborating on this crucially important project in the last year. Stefania Amato, Matteo Brambilla, Simone Licomati, Cinzia Tegoni, many thanks for your help. Many of us who spoke at the signature ceremony of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact in 2015 emphasized the historic relevance of that event, which signaled a clear break from the past. 1 year on, when the number of signatory cities has more than tripled, it's time to think about the future. It's time to ask ourselves, what kind of operational platform do we need to support the new urban foodscape and ensure that it will continue to make us think and feel differently about food? I will focus today on what I consider the 4 fundamental pillars on which our operational platform should rest. 4 pillars that, in my view, should constitute the focal point of our joint efforts and actions as policymakers, practitioners, and researchers. The first pillar is about systems thinking. Urban food policies recognize, when not even emphasize at times, the linkages that exist between complex challenges, actors, and policy domains. Urban food policies are often structured around the multidimensional connections that food has with different social contexts, sectors, and other community systems. As a member of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact's Awards Evaluation Committee, I have recently come across a range of tangible outcomes of systems thinking in the new urban foodscape. From the circular economy approach to food waste in Riga, Latvia, to the edible gardens of Arusha, Tanzania, from the food import and re-export system of Dubai to the Urban Agriculture Promotion and Regulation Act in Nairobi. I'd like to envision a future in which cities will continue to teach our national governments that food policy should never be standalone policies. Food policies work and can make a difference when they take into account the interdependencies between different stages of the food system and its wider connections with human and environmental health. The second pillar of the operational platform that mayors in this room and beyond have been creating for us is an innovative food policy intervention context. Critics often warn us against the dangerous potential of devolved policies, which can indeed set in motion autarkic, defensive, self-referential dynamics. In my experience, I'm happy to say, urban food policies are going in the opposite direction. Localism and the relocalization of the food system are not an objective per se in the many urban food strategies I've come across. Rather, they are part and parcel of wider sustainability strategies. Initiatives like Agri-Food Capital in Northeast Brabant or the Food Security Program in Belo Horizonte are repositioning the city as the fulcrum of development strategies that are using food to strengthen the environmental and socioeconomic relations between urban and rural areas. My second main hope for the future is that urban governments will continue to look at their cities not as bounded spaces, but as deeply relational contexts that are at the same time jurisdictional and bioregional. Third, we all know in this room that cities have been at the forefront of participatory food governance. Urban food policy councils and initiatives like the Food Lab in Bruges, the Council for Sustainable Food in Lyon, or the community dining rooms in Mexico City have enabled civil society to become a proactive rather than just reactive agent of positive change. I think our future will also depend on our capacity to keep civil society in the governance arena, understanding that their involvement is crucial not just to identify problems and response gaps, but also to build the capacity across government agencies, policy sectors, and the final pillar on which I hope urban food strategies will continue to rest is what I call connectivity. Initiatives like the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, or on a smaller scale, the European Agro-Food Platform, or the Metropolitan Food Banks Network in Brazil, initiatives I read about in cities' applications for the awards, such initiatives are becoming critical mechanisms to reconnect the distant food system actors and their ideas, practices, knowledge, and resources. Let's work together to keep the translocal scale alive and ensure that it will remain a site for doing, performing, experimenting, practicing, and sharing food things differently. In conclusion, systems thinking, new policy intervention contexts, participatory governance arenas, and cross-jurisdictional connectivities are demonstrating that there are new questions being addressed and new visions being formed at the urban level. But even more importantly for me, they are signaling the emergence of a more collaborative and reflexive political sensitivity that is building social capacities and is fostering a global sense of citizenship. It's to these capacities and this sense of citizenship that we mostly need to hold on to meet the complex and often cross-scale challenges ahead of us and to bring about sustainable transformations in the food system and beyond. Thank you very much for your attention.
Many thanks to you, Mrs. Sonnino and Mrs. Hawkes, for these very interesting contributions today. You are free now to return to your seats We are going to continue with the program. Thank you very much to both of you. And the following part, we will have 4 mayors having a small presentation and debate here. We are running a little bit out of time, but let me call the mayors. Let me call the mayor of Zagreb, Milan Bandic, the mayor of Córdoba, Argentina, Ramón Javier Mestre, the vice mayor of Amsterdam, Eric Vanderburg, and the Deputy Mayor of Tel Aviv, Megreta Baruch Ron. If they can join me here in the podium, I will be asking all the participants to try to be brief, because we are really very much on delay in the program today. Good afternoon. And I would like, let me see, we have all of us. Yes? Okay. I'm going to ask one question, which is the same for each of you, and I would like each of you to try to explain to us what has it mean to be part of the Urban Policy Pact of Milan, and also what measures or what initiatives have been taken in your respective cities to implement the policies of the Pact. And as I was saying before, I will really try to ask you to try to be very brief. I'll give you the floor, sir.
Thank you. Yes, almost embarrassed to tell you that there where all people are fighting against hunger, and the debate today is about hunger and sustainability. The main problem in the Netherlands is obesity, and that's the fight I am fighting, and I want to win. But it's an important fight. It's not only in the Netherlands, it's in the whole Western society. And this international pact helps us to get a commitment from all participants, especially from the industry, because we need to change the food policy and the products of the industry to change the behavior of people and to change the problems we have with obesity, especially in the Western world. We need less fat, sugar and salt in our food, and that can help us to get the children, where Mayor Sala was talking about, a better life in the future.
Perfect. Many thanks. I'm
going to give the floor to the Mayor of Córdoba. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for this opportunity to participate in this meeting. Briefly, I'd like to refer to the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact of 2015 and the impact it had in the city of Córdoba, which is a city in Argentina, in the southern cone of Latin America. And the specificity of the city is that there are more than 1,450,000 inhabitants, and the largest in terms of local government. I say this so that you have an idea of the dimension of the city. It's the 3rd largest surface area for a city on the American continent, after Mexico City and after Sao Paulo. Córdoba is the 3rd largest city in South America, and 40% of the city is not actually urbanized, and it's therefore in a position to carry out agricultural activities, and undoubtedly it is key to the Pact, which we signed last year in Milan. And this has made it possible for urban and peri-urban farming to afford us with various opportunities. And we've been working very strongly on issues of fairness and inclusion related to food, urban food policy first and foremost, working on the links between the urban and peri-urban areas, affecting the various mayors, with complex situations. And our president without knowing the official data, announced that 32% of the Argentinian population is below the poverty threshold, which means that we need to take the words of the envoy of the Vatican this morning. We need to think hard about ethics, solidarity, and push ahead with policies which for us are very important. That is why I think this Food Policy Pact has helped us, for example, to work on a revision and modification of various policies related to food control, food monitoring, where the Health Ministry has, in recent times, through a survey carried out by the Pan American Health Organization, through the Ministry of Health in Argentina, has given us the classification of being a healthy city. So we've been updating the regulation and controls of food as well as food safety. And this has made it possible for the indices from previous weeks to reflect a significant positive trend. 60% of the city is urban and 40% is not urban. So there are constantly activities ongoing related to the carrying out of monitoring and controls regarding toxic chemicals in farms, for example, which has made it possible for us not only to reduce the levels in fruit and vegetable in the central markets of the town, of the city, but we've also managed to reduce from 20 to 5.5% the number of situations where there is fecal matter in plant and fruit and vegetables, and this has involved a major input from the state and the controlling authority. And we think it's very important for us to have carried out two very robust actions. One is related to solidarity. The Milan mayor referred to access to healthy food for the most vulnerable sectors of the population. And this has involved voluntary steps by the businesses involved in this, with the establishment of cold storage facilities without any cost or condition imposed, so that the food that's come through that process is affected, so that each and every one of the bodies are responsible for what happens to our waste. So I think it's also very important to look at the work we're doing on daily rations. We have to describe the food, the ingredients, the date of manufacture, the sell-by date, and so on, so that most vulnerable sectors of the population have access to healthy food. And the last point is that we've been working very closely on the educational system in the Córdoba city area. We have a very powerful, very strong education system, a very strong health system as well, where 26% of our budget is geared to social, public activities, everything to do with health and education, which are the fundamental pillars, at least as far as we're concerned. And with this in mind, we have, through the Education Ministry, promoted a diagnosis, a consultancy, workshops with children and parents, pupils, and also promoted health in school. So we're talking about the physical areas in the municipalities and the schools to ensure that the food is nutritionally healthy for the entire population. And undoubtedly, this will have a multiplier effect so that there is greater awareness of the decisions to be taken by the state on food policy. And the other issue, which we're also focusing on in the area of health, is that Cordoba City Council has 98 primary healthcare centres, and they have community gardens and orchards with the Agricultural Institute, which have allowed us to improve the quality of life by fostering production by the families of their own food, awareness of nutrition, job creation, and I'd like to tell you that we started at home. We ourselves took the initiative with our own children so that we raised their awareness of everything to do with food and growing food and the actions which this Milan Urban Pact have taught us, and we've taken great pride in developing them further. And we've been sharing this experience with all the other mayors around Argentina. Thank you, Cordoba.
I'm trying to be a little bit quick today, and it is my pleasure to give the floor to the representative of Tel Aviv.
Thank you, sir. Well, there are three things that I want to share with you about Tel Aviv today. The city of Tel Aviv is great. Our food is great, and the city food policy is absolutely great. Well, we have some other major issues that are not great. Tel Aviv is an extremely fun and cool city. Actually, the National Geographic named us one of the cities in the world. We have this 14 kilometers of sandy and sunny beaches and 300 years of days of sun. It is a summer city. Also, in Tel Aviv is very young. Most of our residents are actually more than half are under the age of 35, which means that we have a very vibrant and productive and creative energy in our city. I guess that's why the Wall Street Journal call us Europe's main technology hub. In Tel Aviv, we have 1,500 startups, which make our small city one of the most highest density in the world. And now, our food. We have, I think, one of the most exciting culinary scene in the world, and I'll explain. Most of the citizens in Israel and in Tel Aviv are Jews, and our diet is traditionally dietary. The regulations actually makes us choose vegetables, fruits, and grains, and actually maybe that's why we have also a very advanced agriculture, and we also known as a vegetarian destination for in the world. And in Tel Aviv and in Israel is an immigrant culture that actually provide us a very vibrant and different kinds of cuisines that are that you can find in every corner in our streets. Finally, about our food policy, thanks to Milan Urban Food Pact last year, we initiated this Tel Aviv food policy project, and well, we have a project until the year of 2020, 2020. And the basic of this program is about being an example as a city. So we changed the food that we serve in our city and made it much more healthier. And we have about 10,000 workers, so this is a big amount of people that are that see that something is changing, and a lot of cooperations. But the main focus is on children. Actually, this is a holistic program. And, you know, regarding the education system and the children, the municipality controls the community centers, the libraries, the gyms, the youth movements. So we are going to supervise those places, those educational areas, and to provide to our children much more healthy food, and to do one of the things that we do in schools is the Bete Avon Club, which is a club that children, teachers, and parents get together and think and initiate programs regarding having a healthy nutrition and a healthy way of life. And we do courses to teachers, to kindergarten teachers, and the basic idea is that we have to change the way our children make their choices while coming to have their food. We have to get to know them how the food is come to the world. I mean, it's not from the refrigerator. So we have a program that they actually grown the fruits and the vegetables in the backyards. And I think if I may say about one of the challenges of our city, it will be about closing the gap between the areas in our city that are poor and their access to healthy food is very limited, and to close that gap and to create programs that make the change in that area.
Thank you, Ms. Baruch Ron. And I'll give now, with pleasure as well, the floor to the Mayor of Zagreb.
Okay. Hvala lijepo. Drago mi je da smo nakon Milana prošle godine Expo.
It is a great pleasure, 1 year after Expo and having signed this important Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, to have the opportunity to see each other again here in Rome. We have been able to strengthen the links and alliances between other cities. Now in Zagreb, we've seen how we can strengthen our links with producers and their marketing to help also make our citizens greater aware of the importance of food policies in schools, particularly through children, because we know that children are our future, and they're the ones who will be taking decisions on healthy food and nutrition. In Zagreb, we have 4.5 million inhabitants, and in Zagabria, 1,100,000, I beg your pardon. First was, and we have 22,000 hectares for Zagreb and the surrounding areas. We also have agricultural lands around the city, which allow us to have contacts with producers in the surrounding area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As I said, we are a little bit late. I thank you, all the 4 cities, for your presence